This is Story Route Zero, a podcast where friends gather to talk of their travels through the good, the bad, the ugly, the funny, and even the confusing worlds encountered in games. We may not always know where we're going, but that's often half the fun. Do you have a question, comment, concern, or a story of your own? Hit us up on Twitter at storyroute_0. You can email us at storyroute0@gmail.com, and you can find everything we do at storyroute0.com. Let's have a journey. We're on our way. Here we go. We're going to take over. Set it off one last time. Here we go again. This is Story Route Zero. My name is Matthew. Got a couple of friends with me and one to join us later. I've got Brian Kluel. We call him Moose because we nasty. How are you, sir?
Doing well, man. How are you?
I'm all right.
Awesome.
And then the least polite man in New Jersey, Jason Marshall. How are you?
Wow, I'm honored.
Honestly, I thought of that off the top of my head real quick because you're always saying you're always talking about how Rob Rinaldi's so polite. So
Good old Rob.
Yeah.
Cheers.
Indeed. So we are. This is episode 0 of a podcast called Story Route Zero that we are now launching. And we decided to really just dip our toes in with a tiny topic, the games of 2019. And it's probably going to be a super long show. Our fourth co-host will be joining us for when we actually do our personal games of the year list. But for now, we're going to do some categories. So I'll save the actual intros of like what we're doing here for episode 1. So let's just get into it. Starting off our 2019 cavalcade of bullshit, because 2019 was a good one. Biggest miss. Now, who would like to go first?
I'll go first.
Okay.
It's going to be really weird because this game is pretty high on my game of the year list, but Borderlands 3 and the story for Borderlands 3. I mean, it is kind of tough to follow the Handsome Jack story of Borderlands 2, but I just feel like they're annoying. The main bad guys in the game are they're more annoying than they are like charming and like Handsome Jack had that charm to him where you're like, I hate his guts, but he's funny, so I'll kind of listen to him when he talks.
Yeah.
They're just straight up annoying, and you're just like, I just want to kill him now. And so it's just basically like you trying to like steamroll the game to get to the end so you can just, kill them all. But anyways, I think other than that, though, the game is great. So, I mean, but that's like the biggest miss for me of 2019 was the story.
Yeah, I get that because they were Tyrone and Troy. You kind of knew what they were going to say. They had no surprise, quote, like Jack would tell you stories. There's that one he tells about the guy with the spoon, and then he's like, and the moral is you're a bitch.
Yeah, right.
It's like I don't know, like it's funny, but they're just like they're basically like the most annoying Twitch streamers ever, which was the goal, and they accomplished it. But it was kind of like it was almost telegraphed what they were going to say.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so I get that.
Yeah, I mean I should say, clearly it's been a bit since we've done this. Probably going to spoil some games. So if spoilers are a thing for you, might not want to listen or
go somewhere else, bro.
Choose your own adventure on this one. Just thought I'd be forthright with that. I mean, I think the one thing Borderlands had going for it was the gameplay loop. Shooting guns and making colorful weapons pop out of enemies is still fun.
Oh no, yeah, totally.
But yeah, I'm totally with you. This just so much of that story. It's just like, hey, we're stuck in 2012 internet humor.
Yeah. Like, I mean, like, granted, it was a miss, but the storyline brought forth some great stuff, which we will talk about later in the category lists.
Mm-hmm.
But anyways, I feel they could have did better with the story. But
now, is that your winner, or is that honorable mention? Or
no, so I thought we were just starting with. I guess I could have went honorable mentions.
That's fine. You know, whatever. It's
You know what? We should do honorable mentions and then do our number one. So that was my number one, but I didn't have 2 honorable mentions like normal. I just had one, and the other one was the Division 2.
Okay.
Just with them, like, you think that Ubisoft would learn it from the first one, and right when they get the first one going proper, they release Division 2, and then they just have the same issues. They have the same issues with like the raid. They have the same issues with like limiting things and just like unbalanced and just just one after the other, and you're just like, this is the second one, right? This isn't your first rodeo with the Division. And so I think that was I also feel like there was a huge miss with that one in the fact that, like, I don't like, the only time I'm ever going to go back to that game to play it is to platinum it, and that's it. I think, like, I'll download it to platinum it and then just be like, I'm done playing this. Like, this was the year for me of finding out that I do not want to play games where I have to be involved, on a daily basis, obviously, unless it's World of Warcraft when I play with Captain Canada. But like, games that I have to keep coming back to and put hours upon hours on a daily basis into, I'm just like, no. Like, I feel like it must be something that WoW does, in the fact that, like, I can just hop on there for like an hour and feel like I was productive. When I hop on the Division, I'm like spending an hour to get like 15, 20 minutes to get freaking downtown or get to the right map area. I'm fighting enemies left and right. Then, you might die a couple times depending on what tier world you're playing. And it just, it would get frustrating. Whereas like with WoW, you could just pop in and be like, all right, I'm in this new area. I've got a lot of rested experience. I'm going to do like 3-4 quests and call it a day and bounce out, Like, it's not working against you.
Okay.
So.
Division 2 was actually on mine, only because this is the only category I could fit it in, because I can't find anything really wrong with the game necessarily. It was just, it could have been because I platinumed the first one in January. Maybe it was somewhat of a burnout from the game. I do feel the Division 2 is cumbersome. Like you said, like, you can't just jump on. Like, it takes you 10 minutes to get to, obviously there's fast travel, but like, I feel like it wants you to feel like you're actually hoofing it through the city. Like, but it kind of takes a toll sometimes, because you're like, oh, where was I? Like, where do I go? And then like, and it does have that, piece of candy where you want to go. But then you get so far off course where you want it to do, it's almost not fun to, like, I feel some games that do that, you kind of forget what you were doing and you're like, oh, whatever, this is fun. But that you do, because the progression is tied to some missions, and doing that kind of, it's almost demoralizing. Like, all right, now, like, I guess this is the last thing I do. I wanted to do one thing and I ended up doing this, but I'm not going to bother with the other thing.
Yeah, the actual thing I came along online to do, I'm not going to do because I got sidetracked by other stuff. So
I think it's because of the way I played that game. And I agree with what you said, Moose, about just not wanting to just have that necessity to get on every day. And I remember when I played Destiny for that brief shining 20 minutes of my life. And I was like, before I had picked it up, I was talking to a buddy of mine. He was like, well, you kind of have to jump in every day and do the daily, and then you have to do the nightfalls like every week or whatever they were at the time. And I was just like, why do I have to do that? He's like, well, because it's an MMO. I go, then why would I play an MMO? I mean, I don't like doing chores as an adult. Why am I going to do it in a game?
That have to.
See, that's their problem. Like with World of Warcraft, you don't. That's where I think you might have a misconception. Like,
sure,
shy away from it.
yeah,
You don't have to do anything in World of Warcraft. You can just go in, do some quests. You'd be like, you know what? I want to work on my mining, so I'm gonna go and mine some stuff and level a quest here. Like, you don't have to go in and be like you were saying. Oh, I've got to do the daily quest. Oh, I've got to do the raid quest. You know, like do my night strikes or do. You don't have to do PvP. Like you don't have to do anything in World of Warcraft. You don't have to. Some people don't even go level a character. They just park in the city and work the market and make their money off the market. Like that's what they do. So
and I think that the thought of that sort of pushed me away from Destiny for sure. But in the Division 2, like I was just like, you know what, I'm going to play this, probably platinum it, and then just be done. Before matchmaking was in the raid, I platinumed it, and then I never went back. Like I have the platinum, I don't have the 100% because frankly I don't give a damn. But I did like the loop of the Division. I did like some of the things they did in that world, but I totally agree that it was kind of a miss. So Marshall, any more from you?
My other big miss was I loved Fallen Order. There were no real boss fights. I felt they kind of missed. Like they didn't. I mean, they really they intermingled a lot of cutscenes, and it didn't really get far and doesn't want to.
Which is totally understandable.
You kind of. The first boss fight, I guess it's an introduction to the character. It's cut short. You do have the one fight against the Ninth Sister? I think, yeah, the bigger one.
Yeah, you fight her a couple of times.
But then even the final fight, it's too new, I won't spoil the end, but you don't really finish her, in a sense.
Yeah.
But I felt like with all they were doing, and it was Respawn. Titanfall 2 had some great boss fights. I remember that one on the, I forgot the name of the boss, but the one when you're on top of that train. He's the flying one, and he keeps coming at you.
Oh, yeah. That's a good one.
Oh, my God. I was getting so frustrated. When you get it, you get it. But, I felt Fallen Order really, the combat was great. It's just, there was no, these big boss fights that I wanted.
Yeah.
There were moments, when you found, a legendary creature, but what were those, 45 seconds, a minute? They weren't, long fights.
Oh, and they didn't really seem all that legendary. There was no, real gravitas to it.
No, they were just named. There was just a larger version of the normal.
It's just I'm just and all of them, they're I mean, think about anything, any game we know of there being, the equivalent of a legendary fight, like in Diablo, those special creatures that show up. I want to say, aren't there? No, not the Nemesis system. That was a little different, but
no, but they would glow. They'd be the champions. They'd be yellow outlined, or the elites. But you knew you were fighting them. Legendaries. If you weren't really paying attention to Fallen Order, you probably could beat one on a lower difficulty and not realize. Oh, that's the legendary.
Well, there's a trophy for fighting all four of them, I think. I got it by accident. And I got it. I got it when I fought what I thought was the first one. I'm like, oh, that's a different color one of those. I guess that's probably one of the legendaries. Kill that. I go, so that's one down. Trophy pops. I'm like, what? When did I fight the other 30? Jedi Fallen Order is a really easy play. But there are some annoying parts of it. But yeah, I'm totally with you. They needed. I really liked that game. I enjoyed my time with it. I think it was definitely a popcorn movie of a video game where there was a whole. It wasn't doing much else other than hey, Star Wars. You want to swing a lightsaber at somebody? Cool. You want to change the color of it? Cool. We can do that too. You want to have Darth Maul's lightsaber? Fine. We'll let that happen. I think the third act of that, the writing, is done really well. At least it's not like you're barreling towards an end where you just sort of see the end coming and you want to get through everything else just to get to it. They change it enough in the third act where you're just kind of like, this is, I need to see what this is about now. And there was I don't want to say a whole lot, but like there was enough ancillary Star Wars stuff that I did not know about. Like, I mean, I consider myself a Star Wars fan. I have not read any of the novels. I have not watched the Clone Wars. I have not watched Rebels. The only movie I've not seen is Solo, and frankly, I don't care to. But the parts of the mythos that I didn't know about, like I forget what they're called. I guess they're called Night Sisters. Not what the enemies are, but that one that's on Dathomir or whatever.
Marin.
Yeah, I'm like, I don't know about any of this, and would be really interested in finding out. So hopefully they do more of that.
I'd definitely like to see where they go.
Mm-hmm.
Even if they didn't follow, like they clearly didn't shoehorn it into the movie, like whether it's canon or not, they kind of kept it on its own, and I'd like to see if they keep it on its own.
Yeah. Although I will say this, if they do another Star Wars game, similar, do a different protagonist.
Oh yeah.
Cal Kestis is very boring. It's just like, hey, it's General Lightsaber Man. Like that's what it is.
Yeah.
So from anything else, or you want me to go?
Oh, and then along the same veins, I felt the Outer World bosses weren't. Maybe I was just overpowered, but they really weren't anything
challenging.
Yeah, like there's other games I played this year that it was a boss fight. You knew it was a boss fight. Like the Outer Worlds, like I probably couldn't name most of the boss fights, and I guess the way it was that if you get overpowered, it's kind of like, oh, okay, oh, that was a boss. But I mean, that's more. But that was less than Jedi. It wasn't as prominent for me because there's more to Outer Worlds than I felt Jedi. But we'll get to that later.
Sure. Biggest miss for me, these were games that I really wanted to play but ended up missing out on. The honorable mentions are Bloodstained, Ritual of the Night, Outer Worlds. The saddest thing about Bloodstained, Ritual of the Night is I kickstarted that game, so I just haven't had a chance to play it.
2020, buddy.
I do have it, though. But my winner is Disco Elysium, and the reason I put that as the winner is because everything I've heard about it, it's an RPG. The leveling system is a little bit unorthodox for RPGs, which makes me happy. Very much like a game we'll probably talk a ton about, Remnant from the Ashes, where you're not just throwing stats into strength, agility, defense, intelligence. You are, like in Remnant specifically, you are acquiring new types of stats as you do things in the game, and I think that was super impressive. And that Disco Elysium seems to be a new landmark for story in video games. I'm always interested in finding that stuff out too. So luckily that'll come to consoles in 2020, and I will be able to play it, and I'm excited for it. That's our first category. Next up is definitely the biggest miss, the most disappointing game. I'm going to start this first because I think I have a consistent winner in anybody that played it. Anthem. Yeah.
Ooh.
Yeah.
Damn.
Yeah.
Well, I would say it was my most disappointing game if I actually wasn't playing Anthem, the loading screen.
Right.
Like, couldn't even get into the game to even try it to be able to play it. So, anyways, go ahead.
Yeah, no, Anthem did Anthem did one thing right, and it's the one thing they added late on in the development cycle. So I've heard. The flying in Anthem, getting from one place to another is top fucking notch. The rest of it, though.
Well, I feel if the news out there is correct, it might be a game I might be coming back to where there are talks that they're going to try and do the quote unquote Realm Reborn treatment to it, where they revamp the whole game and relaunch it. And I believe they're even saying that people that own the first, like the initial game, like when they bought the initial game, they'll get this update for free. So it'll kind of be like Anthem comes out and it's like the newest version's like $60, but anyone that already owned the game just gets that automatically. So I don't know if they do that and it turns out to be really good. Maybe I'll come back to it.
You said doo-doo. I think that like you could say what you want about No Man's Sky's launch. This was way, way, way worse. Mainly because before No Man's Sky, Hello Games had only done the Joe Danger series. This is BioWare, where they've sort of been consistently acclaimed for their storytelling. Across the Dragon Age, Mass Effect, those series, Knights of the Old Republic, and they, know their way around a narrative, and this was bad. Yeah. The only bit of interesting story you get is right before you roll credits. And to my knowledge, and I've not been paying that close attention to it, they've not really lived up to what they said they were going to do even that far. So yeah, my honorable mentions in this category were Far Cry New Dawn and Rad. Far Cry New Dawn is kind of a misnomer here because it's really just another Far Cry game. And I think because I really like that series, I want there to be something more to it. And it just does not come along. Rad is a weird one. I recently put a little piece up on my website, infiniterewind.com, about roguelikes. That I basically, it's just like, here's why I like roguelikes. And Rad, I had an incident where I was playing Rad. I was doing really, really well. I had ramped myself up for what I thought was going to be a really long run. I touched this one idol that I had never really seen before, and I'm like, okay, I'll roll this dice. And then it changed my entire character in a way that
bummer.
Like
it was the bummer mutation.
Yeah, it was all of a sudden I had went from having a very, very offensive focused build to a crowd control build, and the only way I had to learn how to use it was the boss fight that was in the next room because I had killed everything else in the world. So yeah, I have a little bit of PTSD from that. So that, I mean, Double Fine, you did a great job with Rad. I'm just really angry at what happened to me in that run. So please don't hate me.
To add to Rad, I loved it, but, and obviously this is I mean, I'm not a developer, but the load times on Rad were abnormally long, and for a roguelike, when you want to just get back in there and you got this 5-minute block where you're like, I gotta wait again, like it kind of kills, it almost kills them, like oh, that's how I do that, and then I'll go back and it's like, oh,
waiting.
I know that, I mean, games are plenty of games have load times, but I feel like a game like, I mean, it's hard to compare everything to Dead Cells because it's such a phenomenal game. But Dead Cells, you died, you can get back in it in 10 seconds at most.
Yeah, the loading is crazy on that game.
Yeah.
And I understand, like, when you're loading different elements into a system, like, obviously it could take longer. But I feel like with that type of game, it kind of, like, it loads you back into the hub world. and then you still have to load just to leave the hub world, and it's like, really?
Yeah.
We're here?
Yeah. Yeah.
So I could see where you came from with that.
Yeah.
What system did you play on?
PS4.
Oh, okay. I wonder how it was on Switch. My complaint.
I played. I double dipped. I liked playing. I mean, I use Switch as this situation. The PTSD event, we'll call it, happened on PS4, but I played it predominantly on Switch, and the load times weren't great, but I will say this: as great as Bloodborne is, when that game launched, those load screens were bad. They were not Bloodborne at launch bad. Rad was not Bloodborne at launch bad, where you die and you could get up, go make yourself a sandwich, take your bathroom break, eat your sandwich, then come back and maybe it'd be finished. Whichever one of you would like to go next.
I'll go. I rarely get disappointed, so usually I don't like a game, move on. Biggest game for me was Decay of Logos. Moose heard me. I was waiting for this when it was announced. I thought it was the coolest thing. I got an opportunity to review it. My review's at where'sthepausebutton.com. I got the code. Turns out the code was wrong, and I wasn't the only one. IGN even suffered from this. A wrong code was sent. Fine, mistakes happen, whatever. Got a new one. This game just would not run, and it was, I don't know if it's been fixed since, but it like killed any urge for me to play this game. Like, it was like Zelda meets a little Dark Souls, Shadow of the Colossus. Like, it was all these great games kind of when you watch the trailer, and it just it's like heartbreaking that it really didn't run at all. Like, and it was just like so frustrating going through this. Like, it was even hard writing the review. Like, it's a 4-man team. I didn't want to knock them. Like, a 4-man team trying, but like,
it's rough.
I've played bad games, but like this just was like, it was almost unplayable, and it was so like, I was really bummed because this wasn't just, oh, I'll try this game. Like, I was looking forward. I think when it was first announced earlier in the year, and then it happened, and it was like, oh.
I remember hearing about that game 2 or 3 years ago. Like, I remember that being announced, and I was like, "Oh, that'll be cool." And I think it was actually you that brought it up to me, Moose, way back then. And I was like, "All right, let's see what happens."
We had it on our games to buy.
Yeah,
back, like on our sheet going back like 2 years, I think. So,
yeah,
and then we just removed it without buying it. And we're just like, bye.
It's like, yeesh.
Yeah, so that was a big one.
Yeah.
I can't speak to Anthem. To be honest, Anthem didn't interest me when it was first launched. It was like, so it's like Destiny, just by a different company. I'll pass.
Yeah.
So I can't speak to. I've heard everything, obviously, all the disappointment from. I mean, that's probably one of the most disappointing, just in a general consensus
Just
for
like,
gamers.
man.
Like, and you mentioned No Man's Sky. No Man's Sky. Yeah, it launched poorly, but it had a small audience. If you didn't really care about it, you're like, who cares? Small indie. Anthem, though, like, it had so much hype built towards it, and everything they did to fix it didn't really fix it.
Yeah.
And then when you actually, it's cool if they do a Realm Reborn style, but like the fact that within less than a year, you got to the point where you're like, oh, we're just going to redo the whole thing. It's like,
yeah. I mean, I think the difference between the two is No Man's Sky suffered from all the expectations that the audience hoisted onto it, on top of it's just a little bit of Sean Murray just saying the wrong things any chance he got. This was just like, you're BioWare. Like, how does this happen? I think it's also like a bit of EA too. Like,
they're no longer BioWare.
No, right, but
it's all EA's interaction with it. It's all like they're just grinding another developer into dust before they completely wipe it from existence and just move on to the next one, you know? And so, like, that game should not have come out. It should have been.
Yeah, they should have
delayed
it. They should have delayed it.
Yeah, but anyways, any more, Jason?
That's it.
All right, I'll go next with most disappointing game, and mine is Star Wars Fallen Order.
Okay.
So, I played it for like a whole day, and got done, I guess, with the tutorial area, and was like ready to get on my cruise ship and like go off and do whatever I had to do, and I'm just like, I don't want to do this. So like, I wasn't enjoying the combat. I wasn't enjoying like the traversal through the world. And I sat there and I'm like, I can either keep this on my console and play this, or I can go back to Control. And I was like, I'd rather go back to Control. And so I was just like, bye. Like it's taken me to the age of 40 and like 2019 to be like, I'm not enjoying this, so I don't have to give it any more of my time. Bye, and just deleted it off.
Wait, like, I'm an adult.
I know. I was like, I don't have to give it my time. I want to, but you know what? It hasn't earned it. I mean, and I also deleted Metro Exodus off my hard drive, but that was to put other games on to go back to. Yeah. I didn't delete it because I haven't even played the game. So I was like, I'm not going to touch it by the end of the year. And I'm like, I probably won't touch it till next year. But like, that's a completely different story. But Star Wars Fallen Order was like the most disappointing for me, just because I heard some really good things about it. I was watching people play it and stream it, and I was like, oh, this looks like I would enjoy this. You know, Dark Souls with Star Wars. I love Star Wars. I love Dark Souls. It just did not click with me, and I might eventually go back to it and maybe get the platinum or something, but I mean, we'll see. Who knows? But that's my most disappointing game of the year.
Any others?
I guess like you, Anthem, because like even though I heard like all the hoopla about it, I had no expectations going in, but then like the fact that like I couldn't get out of a freaking loading screen to play the game, like I sat like I played it for like 90 minutes, like an hour and a half, and like the vast majority of that was like loading screens. I don't even actually, to be honest, I don't even know if I played it that long. I might have sat through like 4 or 5 loading screens and was like, this is dumb. Like this is a waste of my time. And I mean, it sucks.
And there was enough new stuff around Anthem that you could have easily just found something else to do with your
time.
And
I did. Like I completely got rid of it, and I think I went right back to Division 2 or something like that. So that would be an honorable mention. So.
Okay. All right. So now we're going to get into some positivity. Favorite old game. This is more of games where we're little background for people listening. We are all adults. We all have jobs, spouses, and or families. So we have other things to do. This is our backlog category. I'm going to do the same thing I did for the last podcast I was on, where I'm just going to say I had a top 10 for this. I'm not going to talk about any of them. I'm just going to mention them. Gardens Between, Swords of Ditto, Hyper Light Drifter, Neo, Castle Crashers is probably my winner. Enter the Gungeon, Cuphead, Ori and the Blind Forest, Time Spinner, and Crypt of the Necrodancer. Those are all games that didn't come out this year that you should play. Yeah. And now it's your guys' turn.
Bruce?
So honorable mentions, The Messenger at number 3. I guess you could say number 3. That game is just really cool. A lot of fun to play. I didn't get to play it last year.
I bounced right off of it.
It was. I think you had an issue where you're like, oh, it's too easy. I don't want to deal with this, and you bounced. My next, so this category I kind of treat as like 2 categories. Like it's my, like you said, like the backlog category, but also this is my game I should have played the year before. You know what I mean? You know, I should have played this game the year it came out, and I didn't. And so Number 2 is Castle Crashers, but granted that came out in 2008. Still a great game.
Yeah.
Launched on PS4. Gonna try and get that platinum.
Beat 'em ups have not come very far since this game.
No. But my number 1 is Far Cry 5. Like
okay.
It was the first game I platinum in this year, and it was the first game as part of Nerds Gone Platinum's challenge, co-op challenge, and that game was a lot of fun. Had me hyped for New Dawn. So I enjoyed the game thoroughly. It kind of like, I don't want to say Skyrim with guns, but like it had a lot of different ways to approach a situation. So I liked that, kind of like Skyrim does, where you could be like, I'm going to go in, two-handed axes swinging, you know what I mean, with heavy armor, or I'm going to sneak in and take things out silently, and so you got a lot of different ways to approach a situation in both games, and I thoroughly enjoyed that. Sometimes I like to play it. I think too often I played it fast and loose. So there's just a lot of people dying.
Moose for
so
fast and loose.
And you always call me Leroy.
Whoa. Just because I'm going in fast and loose doesn't mean I'm going to lose. You tend to go run into the situations where you're going to lose.
That's my problem. Charge headlong into death. It's great. Anything else?
No, just those 3. I mean, there's other great games like Hollow Knight. Play that. That's a great game. I mean, Time Spinners Spinner.
Time Spinner's fucking good, man.
Yeah. So I mean, there's like a whole bunch of like games that you could just make. Like these are the greatest games, this generation. And we were talking about it in our host chat where like our 4th person was stating that he's got enough games to last him through 2020, and I was looking and I was like, I've probably got enough games to last me through 2030. Like all the games I have on my PS4. So, and that's not including like some of the stuff, like that's not including like new releases. So coming this year, but anyways, next year. But yeah, that's it. The list could go on like you said, top 10. But yeah, Far Cry 5 definitely took the top spot because I think it was like the most pleasantly surprising game for me as far as like how much fun I had with it. So
now that was your first Far Cry game?
Yes.
Okay.
And then I did New Dawn. So platinum both of them. I do want to go back and platinum 4. I'd like to go back and do 3. I don't know if 2 has a platinum, and probably 2 and 1 probably.
2, I don't think it does.
1 does.
Far Cry Classic does. It's super easy, actually.
Okay. Yeah, I might try it. It might be.
It's ugly.
Yeah, it's an old ass game. I mean,
but
I think that's like what. I mean, I think it only came out on PC, but it was like pre-Xbox 360, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's
probably Xbox days.
Yeah, like it was.
It runs great, but
it's just not the best looking game. Jason.
So honorable mention, because I'm always trophy hunting. I went back to Guacamelee on the Vita. That's a fun game.
That really is.
I haven't finished the platinum yet, but it's so enjoyable. Like it's not even it's just fun to play. Like, another Far Cry game, Far Cry Primal.
Okay.
I loaded that up. I loaded it up a couple times, but then once I got going, I just kept at it. It's actually quite enjoyable. It's a break from the guns of Far Cry. It's cool using like traps and bows and spears. It was just fun, and the platinum's not that bad.
That's the only Far Cry game I've not played.
And the first runner-up would be with me and Matt, Neo.
Yeah,
we dug into that.
Yeah.
I'm still working on it, but I had a lot of fun playing Neo. I don't know if I'd get Neo 2 at launch, but I mean, definitely leaning towards it because of how much fun I had. But the winner actually, I don't remember ever beating this as a child, so I went back with Nintendo Online and I beat Super Mario Brothers, the first one.
Oh, wow.
Really? All 8 levels, and I like.
Okay.
got to do it and remember it. Like, I'm sure I beat it at some point when I owned a Nintendo, but like just having that access on my Switch, I was like, you know what? I'm just gonna go through the Nintendo Online library. That was the first game on there, and I beat it. I was like, hell yeah, I beat it.
Coming for you, Nintendo.
I'm gonna get you. I'm gonna get you.
That's awesome.
That is awesome.
Super Mario Brothers, still a good game. Who knew? Next up, favorite combat.
Ooh.
There was some good fighting this year in video games. There really was. I have. Who wants to go first? What do you want to go first? I feel like I've started the last 3 categories.
I'll go first. Or actually, okay, Jason, you go first.
All right.
And I'll take the next one.
All right.
Well, I'm going to have to go with, and normally I would never pick a shooter for this because they're all the same. They're just shooty, stuff falls.
Shooty.
shooty, die.
But
pew, pew.
I'm going to have to go, I really enjoyed the gunplay in Remnant.
Fucking A, you did.
It was different. It wasn't just like ammo's not. It's not like survival level, like limited. Like, oh crap, I only have 5 shots. But like, it did make you. I mean, maybe I just have a knack for headshots. If Matt could speak to that. But
it's real weird. It's real weird. We've got that guy coming. Don't worry about it.
It just felt great, and like the different weapons, they all felt different. I thought that was cool. Like every weapon, like there maybe the assault rifle and the typewriter were similar, but the weapons were so like different play styles completely, and I thought that was really cool.
That's definitely an honorable mention for me too. That game is. Oh man, that game is so good. Many people just missed it too.
Yeah. Hopefully more people get to play it, especially that it's on Game Pass.
Yeah. Please play that game.
An honorable mention would be Star Wars. I did feel once you got the flow of things, but I felt it wasn't as weird. Combat wasn't as common. Weird, like you would fight, and then there'd be a lot of like running around, jumping, climbing. Then like it kind of broke the consistency of it. But once you got going, like towards the end of the game, I didn't like hesitate, even if it was like a heavy, like, oh crap, what am I gonna do? Like you had enough moves that it varied enough. It was kind of cool. Yeah. But that Remnant was definitely my favorite style.
Yeah, that game is. Whew. Well, and then I found out recently that's actually I don't think it's a sequel, but it's definitely in the universe of another game that Gunfire did called Chronos. I did not know that.
I think we were talking about that.
Did we talk about that?
I think it's a VR only PC game.
Okay. And I'm like, I have to see what that is now.
I think they didn't announce it till people on the forums, I think maybe on Steam or Chronos, were asking them, like, wait a minute, isn't that? And they're like, maybe. And then they finally like went and they confirmed the setting, and like I think it's kind of like just before and kind of runs parallel to the beginning of Remnant.
Okay. Yeah.
Nice.
Like the lore, I think you'd get more lore out of Remnant if you play the other one.
Oh, okay.
Like there's a little backstory. It doesn't directly lead, but it kind of gives you an idea of what happened.
Mm-hmm. All right. Probably what sets your character on their journey to the island.
And I'm excited that Remnant's got more content coming.
Mm-hmm. Me too.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, the stuff that they've added over the stuff that they've supported that game correctly. I think the one thing that was it seemed very daunting at the time, where you had to sort of re-roll your world. I mean, I know we'll probably get into this later, but them making it so you could just re-roll sections of it rather than the whole thing, and then not to mention the hardcore mode. That game's really good. Moose, what do you got?
So, honorable mentions, Control.
Okay.
So the only complaint I have about Control is the like when you get into cover and you aim, like you hold down L2, like if you let go, it doesn't put you back in cover. Like you're still just standing there, which I feel it kind of is a pain in the ass to get used to. Like it should just be like, if I'm in cover and the only thing that should get me out of cover is hitting that button again. Not like L2. If I aim, let me pop out, get some shots. Other than that, I felt like the gunplay was really good. I like the special abilities. No spoilers to the story of like what you have and can use in the game. Mm-hmm. So I enjoyed that a lot. So that got third place. Second place or second honorable mention, Remnant. Loved Remnant. Loved the melee, the up close and personal. I agree with Jason. Like you kind of want to treat your ammo like, hey, I got to be careful with my shots, but then it's not like Resident Evil 2 or whatever where you're like,
you run out of ammo,
fire
you're just
any
done.
I just have to run. I just have to run past this enemy. So they did a nice balance with that. Also, then like later on, once you like get enough money or whatever to just carry around ammo boxes with you, like it kind of makes clearing things a lot easier. But so thoroughly enjoyed the combat in that game. And then my number one is Children of Morta. So that game has phenomenal combat, especially, and to me, like all the different styles of fighter of like character classes that they have in the game for each of the family members, like they did a really good job with all of them. Mm-hmm. So like
they took some care in developing that game, which is impressive.
So like the father is the board and sword, and then like his daughter is uses a bow and arrow, and she can move while shooting the bow and arrow, but she uses up her stamina more quickly. So you have to plant to like get your stamina back. And then like another family member has like fire. She's a pyromancer. She can't move while she's firing. So like you have to really learn their strengths and weaknesses and get through the levels, like both ways, because I'll talk about it later on. We get to, I think the next category I'll talk about it more, but
sweet.
Children of Morta was my favorite combat for the year.
Okay. Favorite combat, I have 5 in this category. I'll be really quick. 5 and 4 would be Control and River City Girls. River City Girls is a super solid beat 'em up that people should play. It's published by Arc System Works, developed by Way Forward, so that probably gives you the inclination that it's mostly pixel art, but it's a pretty ass game. My 2 honorable mentions are Apex Legends and Remnant from the Ashes, both very different in their shooting. Apex Legends I think that's just another example of how good Respawn is at making games. Mm-hmm. And they made 2 really good ones this year. In Apex, basically like everybody's new favorite battle royale game, and everyone, and basically the new best Star Wars game of all time, depending on who you ask. But Apex Legends is a phenomenal example of really good gunplay, and I echo everything Jason said, as well as Moose, and more. I like going back into Remnant just to play, a level or 2, just to fight a boss. It's a very good game, and my favorite aspect of it, I don't think this is super mentioned, is in order to use the gun, you have to aim.
Yes.
And as dumb as that sounds,
I would just say out of context,
as dumb as that sounds, as dumb as that sentence may sound to somebody, in video games, it makes so much sense, because this harkens back to when I first started playing like first person shooters and realized that you could aim. That makes a lot more sense. They should make that more necessary, because firing from the hip, you just waste a ton of bullets. If you try and fire while you're not aiming in Remnant, you just swing whatever melee weapon you have. And if you have a good hammer, it's really good in a fight. My favorite combat, far and away, is Sekiro Shadows Die Twice. This is almost like From Software doing the anti-Souls thing. where instead of, you know, they planned for people trying to turtle like you would in Dark Souls, and they also planned on for people getting too aggressive, where like you would in Bloodborne to try and get that life back. But this treats swordplay with the utmost respect, and it makes it more. It makes it more like watching an old school kung fu film, where, you know, they're doing over the top moves, but there's actually there's a rhythmic dance like quality to it. Mm-hmm. And if you're not on beat, that's when you get hit. So at some point in Sekiro, you have to basically submit to the rhythm, otherwise you get wrecked. And no game was more fun to fight in for me this year than Sekiro. Next category, favorite mechanic.
I thought it was favorite mechanics. Game
mechanic. Oh, favorite game mechanic.
Okay. Obviously, Scooter from Borderlands 2. Conversation over. Moving on.
You know what, Jason? We're starting with Moose this time.
Oh shit!
You like how I did that?
He's like, God damn it! I actually picked a mechanic.
So no, I thought I had it plural.
Interpret this however you want.
I had favorite game mechanics,
mm-hmm.
and so that's my list. So I don't have like but my number one definitely has some really a good mechanic in it. But anyways, honorable mention Blasphemous, like the way they built on unlocking things in the game in Metroidvania type style. Like I feel that was really cool. Also dying in Blasphemous was cool because like, okay, you die and you build up guilt each time you die, and you have to get back to like where you died, or you have to find a statue to pay a certain amount to resolve your guilt and get your health back. So I thought that was a cool mechanic, instead of just taking your souls or whatever so you can't upgrade, or, you know, it punished you in the way that if you died, you would leave behind, you know, whatever, and that would build your guilt, and so your health bar would just slowly go down to a certain point.
Yeah, I think it's about halfway.
I think it was like 3, like it was 3 times, which would go like halfway or something like that, or whatever. I don't know, but I never had a problem with.
I'm just gonna tag team on you. That's actually my number one.
Okay.
That plus that death screen is so good.
Yeah, I highly recommend checking out Blasphemous. They did such a really good job with that game. I got to get back to it and play more of it and beat it. But that was a really cool mechanic. This one is actually just game mechanics. Ape Out. I thought Ape Out was cool.
God, yeah, Ape Out's really good.
Like I thought it was cool, like making you grab your enemies and then using them to like shoot other enemies, or grabbing doors and pulling them off things, because you're like an 800-pound gorilla who's got like a shit ton of strength, and you know. So I thought that was pretty cool. I liked how when you died, like it would show your path through the level, and then like you could start over, and like that game's on another list. And so but anyways, that was pretty cool. But Children of Morta gets my number one spot for favorite game mechanics, because they did like some really cool things, like weaving the family together. Like you have your skills that you unlock for your own personal character, and then like as your character levels up, you unlock things for your family. So like the main character is Board and Sword, and then when you get to unlock a certain amount of skill point or skills in your tree, you unlock your family trait, which increases your health. And then there's like one of the other family members is like increases your critical hit chance because he's a rogue, you know, and he does critical hit damage. And so like they wove it together really well. And then what they also do to you is your family members get like, I don't want to say infected, but they get tired from like fighting what you're fighting in the game. And so like their health deteriorates. So they're at like 24%. So their health is like down 24% from what it was. So it's like, okay, well, you go home and rest, and I'll take out this family member and level them up, and and get gear and whatnot. Well, maybe not gear, but I'll just level them up and get experience and money and be able to unlock other things in the game. And
That's
then
fascinating.
what was really cool about it is also the upgrade mechanic is across the board. So it's not like you go in as the father who's board and sword and you're only upgrading his like main weapons. You're upgrading your attack power. You're upgrading your movement speed, and that goes across the entire family. So like any character you take into battle, if you upgraded your attack power like 4 times, they get that attack power up 4 times. So I like that mechanic that they add to the game, instead of it being like, great, so now I really have to like level each of them well to keep them well rounded. It's like, no, like he's the most upgraded that I have is the father, just because he's the one that I played him the most. And so but like then it's starting to trickle down, and like as that quote unquote sickness where they have to go rest, I've started rounding off the other characters as far as levels go. But yeah, the game, just overall, the game mechanics in Children of Morta is just awesome. It's just amazing. So that's my number one.
That's a game I really want more time with. I've only played a little bit of it on Switch, but man, it's a interesting Diablo-esque combat in that game. Jason?
Yes.
My honorable mention would be Slay the Spire. First couple times you play it, you just pick whatever. But once you realize what you can do later, the decisions they give you, they're not just, oh, do you want to buff to this, or this? It's like, you want to buff to this, but you lose this, or do you want more health, but you get a weakness every time, or and then when you beat bosses, like I felt the decisions had more weight when you realized how the game worked. And I thought that was pretty cool. It wasn't just I'm just going to pick this, I'm going to pick this, I'm going to pick this. Like I'd actually look at it and like kind of cycle the options. Like, oh, I can get 10 more health, but I get 2 exhausted cards each hand. And it's like, oh, do I want to sacrifice the cards, or do I need the health? Or do I want to rest and get more health, or do I upgrade? Do I think I can make the next fight? Like, I think the way it wasn't just a card game. Like, it was cool.
Well,
and actually,
let's not be reductive here. It wasn't just a good as hell card game.
My other one, actually, and I'm sure I'd be the only one to pick this. I mean, I loved Wolfenstein Youngblood.
Okay.
And having an AI co-op partner that wasn't just she's with you shooting. Like, if you use the buddy system, they had this thing, I forgot what it's called, but basically it was like they shouted out encouragement. You could actually change it up so every time I did it, I gave us both health, and she gave us armor. Or you could switch it, you need both of them to do health. And it was on a cooldown, but you could actually, it wasn't explained well in game unless you really look. And I put 60-something hours in, so you start to look for things.
You did.
At that point, if you didn't find it.
And I just thought it was cool, like, because I kind of I also wish they would have explained it, because on my first playthrough, it would have been something useful, like, oh, that makes it a little easier. And I thought it was a new way to do it. And I like that. It's kind of a side mechanic to that. If a buddy joined you, they could be your partner. And if they jump out, you go back to the AI partner. It's not like a whole thing where it resets.
Okay. It's pretty seamless.
Yeah. Like,
okay.
You could join my game, and then you leave. I go back to the AI partner. You join. It works like that.
That's cool.
Yeah.
That's cool. As I said when Moose was talking about Blasphemous, Death and Blasphemous is actually my number one. And I didn't really, I mean, my first honorable mention is definitely more innovative than that, but there was just something that dying in that game did to me mentally. Like overall, like I was super invested in trying to find all of my little idols to make sure I had no guilt. Blasphemous is a really fun game. But my first honorable mention is Command Assignment in Baba Is You. This is Baba Is You. I think I agree with Mark from Game Maker's Toolkit that this is probably the most innovative game of 2019 because it's a puzzle game where the player, unbeknownst to them, sets the rules. And you are given rules at the outset, but then you can push them around and change them. Like the first thing you see is Baba is you and flag is win. So you use the little white icon that's Baba to get to the flag and you win. But that changes over time to where it starts out as Baba is you, but you have to manipulate commands to all of a sudden you can change it from flag is win to Baba is win for some reason, or wall is move, wall is you, where you could just all of a sudden you are the wall moving around to get to the flag rather than being Baba. It's one of it, and just doing that in itself sort of, it makes you feel like you're a god in a weird way. It's just, and the reverse engineering and the stuff that, like, Baba Is You is the best puzzle game that I've played since The Witness. And it was just like The Witness. It made me feel super smart when I figured it out and made me feel super dumb when I was just at the end of it. And I'm just like, I need to take a break because I'm an idiot. But then I would go back, solve it, and be like, yep, I'm a genius again. So Command Assignment and Baba Is You is my first runner-up, and my second runner-up is Flight in Outer Wilds. I've heard a lot of people say that the flying in this game is super clunky and archaic, but I think a lot of it makes sense in terms of like the very rudimentary things I know about physics, as well as you wake up for the first time in that game and they're like, you ready for your first launch? So naturally, if it's your first launch, of course you're gonna suck at flying.
So you're gonna be like, no.
And you're like, wait a minute, what? and then
yeah.
and then even in the little town you wake up in, there's like a little remote control ship that you can practice with. Still doesn't really prepare you for it, because I don't know how many times I spiraled out of control in Outer Wilds and ended up in the sun. But flying in the Outer Wilds is really fun. And even if you're like, if you're at the point where you're, I would say, mid game, and you're like, you know where you need to go, you just want to get there, you can actually just autopilot your way there, and the autopilot's pretty easy to jump in and out of. So yeah, nice. Outer Wilds is such a fucking good game. Favorite controls. I'm gonna start this one. My runners up are Control and Untitled Goose Game. Mm-hmm. Okay. Control is a very good third-person action game, and Untitled Goose Game is the best Hitman game of 2019. I think that the simplicity of Untitled Goose Game is it's necessary, but it's also elegant, and it's just everything you need in a way that does not waste space. Untitled Goose Game, for being, a 3 to 5 hour romp, there's no wasted space in that game whatsoever. And controlling that goose, annoying the townspeople, and just setting people up for shenanigans is just hilarious. Control is, I think rightfully so, is my first runner-up, because controlling Jesse in even the combat situations is a lot of fun. Sure, it could be more precise. It could be, it could take, what Moose mentioned earlier about, popping in and out of cover more seriously. But I I think that the only time it really the only time the controls in that game really fail the player is during the bigger boss fights, and because some of those are just not very well designed. But yeah, Control is ultimately one of the more fun games to play of the year. My number one is Outer Wilds. I feel like it's going to be a whole lot of you guys not being surprised by that fact. Playing Outer Wilds is some of the most interesting exploration that I can remember in playing games, and using the tools you get in Timber Hearth at the beginning of the game. They basically start you with everything, and everything aids you throughout. So let's go to Jason next.
The runner-up, Remnant, and it's runner-up because there is a mechanic with the controls in Remnant that drove me insane. L3 switches your aim from your left or right shoulder.
That gets so confusing.
It would only happen in the middle of boss fights, it seemed. Particularly the last boss fight. And
the high-stress boss fights.
Oh my god, it drove me, like, I'd be like, I got the shot. Switch shoulders, miss. Dead. Really? Really? So yeah, that's the runner-up because it sounds like such a little thing, but it, like, had there been an option to turn it off, it would have been perfect. Like, how hard would it have been to disable that? But actually, my favorite controls were Jedi. Playing Titanfall from Respawn, I could do the wall runs, but I was never great at it. Like, you had to kind of hit the right angle, like, you had to be fast enough. I don't know if it was just Jedi made it easier, but it just felt good. Like, you always knew, like, there were sometimes you'd come up short because you were running too slow or you made the jump too quick, but it just felt good. And, like, once you get your force powers, like, wall run, grabbing a rope, force pulling it, and then pushing some, like, it was more fluid without, like, a lot of practice. I didn't feel like I needed to be an expert at the game.
Okay.
So that would be my favorite controls in a game.
All right.
Moose?
I'm going to go, my runner-up is Children of Morta. I had a couple. Controls were good. So that would be third. Second runner-up would be Children of Morta. Just it plays like plays really well as a dungeon crawler. Like really well, handles well, buttons. There's not latency. Like everything just moves like butter. You know, kind of like we've talked about it before in our previous show, like Super Meat Boy. Like whenever you die in Super Meat Boy, you're like, no, I fucked up. Like the controls don't fail you, if that makes any sense. And so, Children of Morta is kind of the same way. Like, I don't ever feel like the controls failed me. And if they did, it was because I didn't know the controls yet. You know what I'm saying? Like, it wasn't, I hit a button and it wasn't a quick response. Or, I mean, it was a delayed response instead of a quick one. I just wasn't familiar with the controls yet. And then number one definitely would have to be Remnant. Like, I loved, it didn't get mentioned in my mechanic, but, like, the whole having to actually hold L2 to fire your weapon was awesome because it like allowed you to switch between your firing and your melee weapon real easily. And the melee and your button's the same. R2 is your attack button, whether you're swinging melee or shooting. And I thought that was really cool. The controls were tight. Your aiming down the sights were really good. Movement was good. Crouching was good. Melee was good. You know, all that stuff was good. Controls are really good in Remnant. So that's my number one.
Yeah, I like the melee. That whole let go, and so it's there. It's not an extra button, and you kind of just you have it. And but it made melee when you change your weapons up. It made it feel useful, not just because most shooters melee's useless. It's like, oh shit, the guy's right in my face. Let me hit it. Like,
it's a last resort. Really.
But like there were with the melee weapons when you max them out, like there was one that increased your it built your
builds your
mod ability, and like so you could just take out the one hit guys, like a group of 10 of them, full mod, and then you recharge.
Yep. And right back at it, we're going to a random category. I call it the favorite question block category. And this is where each of us can pick something we want to rank and rank it. My choice was favorite weapons in Remnant from the Ashes. My number one with a bullet is the particle accelerator, mainly because you fire a little black hole into the middle of arena and it just brings everybody to one spot and just creates a nice little shooting gallery for you. Second favorite is Swarm, where you basically fire a little burst of radiation out of your arm. And it basically goes after whatever living thing is nearby. It's a great little weapon. Then my third is the Song of Swords, which is a great buff for the entire party. And Remnant is really good. You should play it. I know Moose bowed out of this category. So Jason, what's yours?
Mine was favorite line of dialogue from a game. I played a lot of games. I played over 100 games.
You did.
But there really weren't like a lot of memorable. Like Wolfenstein didn't have anything great. It was more cheesy.
Mm-hmm.
But so there's one line from Borderlands. There's actually two from Borderlands 3. But the one, and you both know, there's a whole dialogue and like it doesn't make sense. And he says classic Gary.
Yep.
And it was one of those ones that like, these guys that end up turning into these creatures, and it's just like they're even joking about their predicament. It's like classic Gary, and it's just like it's one of those things that always stuck. The second one's not a spoken one. It's from Cthulhu Saves Christmas.
Okay.
You go about your task, and you end up being a mall Santa. And if you've seen Cthulhu, he's obviously not the most Santa-looking one, and the guy who pays you says, you are the worst mall Santa ever. And it just fit the game. But number one for me, this is one of those random ones from Borderlands that only happens in certain instances, and whenever it did, I thought it was the funniest thing. I was playing as Zane, as my main character. Whenever he joined a party, there was always a chance he'd say, sorry I'm late. There was a thing with the drunken spider ant and a princess, and it's a whole thing. Oh, let's get to it.
That's awesome.
And the first couple of times I'd hear it, like, only bits and pieces. But then when I realized what he was saying, I'm like, that is just – Borderlands' strong suit's always the subtle, like, everything's funny. But there's always, like, little things you don't hear all the time. You're like, oh, that's what he's saying.
It's when they're not swinging at the fences when they succeed.
Yes.
Yeah. All right. So next one, next category, favorite boss fight. I know we're pretty much going to start doing winners, but I have a list here just because there were a lot of really good ones that I faced. My number one is definitely the final boss in Sekiro Shadows Die Twice. From Software has never done a better boss fight. Ishin Sword Saint is his name. Also in the running were Noise from River City Girls, the Guardian 8 second encounter from Sekiro, Essage from Control, that's Jesse backwards. Fighter in a Mirror, it's really good. Exposito in Blasphemous, and the Dreamer / Nightmare from Remnant from the Ashes. Moose, you skipped out the last one. What about this one?
Honorable mention and boss last Remnant, which was Dreamer / Nightmare. Is that was
yes.
Name? Yeah. So mainly because the co-op was awesome.
Yeah.
You, me, and Jason trying to take it on and like learning it, and there was progression. I felt like maybe we were banging our heads against the wall, but like we still had progression. So it wasn't like to the point where you're just like, oh, this sucks. I'll play it later. But like, we were making enough progression in it to be like, we'll keep coming back. And then you had to go to bed, and we did it another time. But anyways,
yeah,
so that was a good one. I know
it was a whole thing.
I know this one's going to be
There's a thing with the spider ant and drunk.
Gorefist for Last Remnant.
Yeah.
I enjoyed that fight because it was kind of the same thing where like it was like me, Jeff, and Jason like trying to figure out where we can run in the world, like how we could not get killed by his little like get
exploding
poisoned.
assholes.
Yeah, like, exploding assholes. Like not get blindsided by him. So that was a cool fight. I soloed it after I picked it up, trying to go after the platinum, and it took my second, because I'd been away from the game for a while. Took my second try on him to kill him, but got him down. And then my number one boss is the Spider King, which is the first boss in Children of Morta. And the reason he's my favorite boss is because he's pretty sporadic. He's got some ads. He's got some spider webs that like slow you down. But then like there's a trophy where you have to beat a boss without taking any damage. And I was like, I'm getting this fucking trophy on this boss. Because it's like, I felt it was, pretty impossible. And I got the trophy on that boss. And I was like, this is a good fight. I enjoy this. And yeah, anyways, it's just a fun fight. So anyways, that was my number one boss fight.
For me, just the runner-up is Kilovolt in Borderlands, only because I don't know what it was, but I beat him, and then there were like IGN articles, Forbes, GameSpot. Everyone was saying this is the hardest boss. It's impossible to solo. And I'm sitting here like, I didn't do anything special. Was I just overpowered? Like, I didn't get it. And I was like, and then I'm going back helping people. I'm like, this isn't hard. I like this fight. But my favorite boss actually was from Remnant, but it was Clavenger.
Okay.
He's just two giant hands and a head. He's like a giant tree. It looks so cool. Like when he enters the fight, you're just like, what the like? You see the giant, you're like, oh yeah. God! And it had a cool mechanic where he
spins the arena,
spun the table. Like it's like you're on top of a giant dreidel, and he just spins you. And then it was a cool fight. Also, it was where I got that trophy for not taking damage, because at the time the game was slightly broken, and if you entered the fight, you got the trophy, because I clearly died in the fight. But hey,
yeah, I got it on the end.
I do have to say, almost all the bosses in Remnant, they were unique enough that the fights were really cool.
Yeah. Like even their phoned in boss fights were all right. Like I think it was called Rays or whatever. The giant triangle, the floating triangle. Like that's probably the least designed boss fight in that game, and it's still fun to play.
I'd honestly have to say only one boss fight sucked in that whole game, and it's the one that kept glitching on me and you, Matt, where he teleports.
Shroud?
No.
Oh no. What's his name? Onslaught.
Yeah, like I don't know
Onslaught.
if we ever experienced a fight as intended. So it was hard to. It was like, oh, this stupid thing, and we would just beat it quick.
But then also it was like, man, what if he's teleporting around the arena? That would suck.
Very true.
All right, next category: favorite level. For me, there's really only one winner here. That is the Ashtray Maze from Control. Very late game section of that, and it's the one area that like I didn't have any trouble getting through it, but man, the style in that section is just, it is trippy, it's beautiful, the music that's playing, it's great, like everything about that. I feel like Remedy they all sort of huddled and said, look, I don't care how busted the rest of this game could run for somebody, this part has to run perfect. And I think that is a definite submitted for the Academy, submitted for the Emmy Awards episode of a TV show. Like it is damn near perfect. And I have several runners up, but I don't really feel the need to talk about it. Like Ashtray Maze and Control is amazing.
For me, it's the Labyrinth in Remnant, but the section where you're essentially timed because you're being poisoned. But more so when I was not playing co-op, because that's the only time I actually was, I don't know if scared is the word, but you're stressed. Running through. Yeah, it's very stressful because you hear the music was it changed, and you're like you couldn't tell if something was about to jump out, and like you're also trying to focus on trying to get through it. And I just every time I got it, I was like, I actually enjoyed it.
Okay. Yeah, no, I like that, but like when I was basically running for the platinum, I'm like, man, I don't want to do this place again.
Yeah.
But yeah, that is a coolly designed section of that game.
Moose?
So I got some good honorable mentions, but I'm just gonna do my number one, and that is pretty much any level in the Tourist. And the reason I say any level is just because the game is just so simplistic in that it doesn't hold your hand, but then it's not so obtuse that you're banging your head against the wall. You just play the game and you enjoy it. And the reason any level is my favorite is because they're all beautiful. Like the game has such an amazing style to it. It's beautifully lit. It's got a lot of character to it. And you're just running around and moving throughout the worlds. And it's such a great game. I'm so glad I just bit the bullet and, bought that game this late in the year. And next week, I have off next week from work. I'm going to play the hell out of that game and just beat it. I want to do it all in one sitting and just have a blast with it, but it's a lot of fun. So I say any level in the Tourist. It's a lot of fun.
Moving right along is favorite setting and or game world. I'm going to actually, you know what, Jason, you go ahead.
I have to go with Remnant. I thought it was so bleak, but it was so, I don't want to say it's a cliche, it's bleak, but it's alive. But it just was like dark, and like this world went to shit, but like it was, I thought they did an excellent job on the level design. Like it was randomized.
Then you go to the next world and everything has gone to shit there.
But it was cool that there was different, like you weren't just stuck in this rundown city. Then you were in a jungle. Then you were in a desert. And they made a desert look bleak, which a desert's already bleak as it is.
Yeah.
But it kind of, the way it showed this world that's completely destroyed, like, and ruined. And it just, I thought they did a phenomenal job on the world. And I hope that, I look forward to more content.
Yeah, I want them to add more worlds to that game. I'm not going to talk about any one of these. I'm just going to say them. Custodia and Blasphemous, River City and River City Girls, Sengoku Japan and Sekiro, Small Town UK and Untitled Goose Game, The Oldest House in Control, and the solar system you are in Outer Wilds. All of those game worlds are awesome. Next category. Biggest...
Wait.
What?
The other guy.
Who cares about Moose? I actually thought he went already. I apologize, Moose.
DC in Division 2. It was a lot of fun running around that world and checking out like seeing how like when civilization
seeing very near future America.
Yeah, this is very near future America. So I thought that was really cool. They had a lot of attention to detail. It was cool. It was fun running. It was almost as fun as running around New York in Division 1. So I don't know. It's good.
Yeah. Stuff. It's a well realized world. Next category, biggest dork. I'm not really sure. I'm never really sure how to just interpret this category. So I'm gonna say, like, these characters are that are generally like nerdy or like silly but still lovable. And I think there's no other winner for me than Mudtooth in Remnant from the Ashes, just because all he really wants is someone to just talk to, but even he won't admit it to himself. and then he also, like, he's like, when you actually like sit there and listen to his stories, he gives you his pocket watch. It's like, you know what, I don't think I'm gonna need this anymore, but I'll bet you might. And then you do, because it basically just skips a boss fight for you. so yeah. I liked Mudtooth. Mudtooth is all right in my book. I have several others that I could talk about, but give it to the man in the RV that's in a tree, even though it's a plane.
Moose?
Parvati in Outer Worlds.
I'm gonna jump on that wagon too.
Not only like biggest dork, but most adorable dork. She's just love, like, her storyline is great, and just her as a person is great. I really wish she would have won Best Performance at the movie awards, but I mean the video game awards. But still, what are you gonna do? Like, she's just a lot of fun to have in your party. So interacting with her and following one of her storylines, she's pretty much guaranteed she will always be in my party for the rest of the game. So
okay.
Yeah, I mean, I was pretty much a dick that whole game. Like, if the dialogue presented itself, I was just like, nope. Like, it's like you could just give it to me before I shoot you. But like when it came to Parvati, I like wanted to help her. Like, she had a crush on someone. And I was like, something didn't work out. I'm like, oh, let's go to the bar and get drunk. Like, I felt like she was such a dork. Like, you felt bad. You're like, I want to help her.
Yeah.
And it's Ashley Birch who does Tiny Tina.
That one scene in Remnant from the Ashes. Hello. Okay, so favorite new character. This can be playable or NPC. I'm not going to talk about any one of these, but I am going to rank that, or I am going to just mention a list. Jesse Faden, Control, the entire ensemble in Outer Wilds, Kyoko and Misaku in River City Girls, Wraith in Apex Legends, and Reggie from Remnant.
Yeah, my runner-up is Reggie from Remnant because it's Lee from The Walking Dead, and it's so weird. Him basically the whole game yelling, "Come at me, bro!"
Dave Fennoy is all over Remnant from the Ashes. He plays the male protagonist as well as Reggie.
For me, it's actually Zane from Borderlands.
Okay.
Every Borderlands has the playable characters usually become NPCs, so I really hope with the next entry, he has a bigger role. I felt he had some of the best one-liners because I played all 4 characters, and I just felt, I mean, Flack has the best and most disturbing one-liner. Moose knows what, he says something about, I don't do puzzles.
So he's like, I don't enjoy puzzles unless it's putting together my enemy skeletons after I remove them from their bodies. And so we're sitting there. He said this, and I shit you not, it was like 10, 15 seconds later, I'm like, wait, what? So like Jason, I was like, what did he just say?
Other than that, Zane just, like, I even joined random parties, and like, people were laughing at like the things he would just randomly spout out, and I was like, "This is awesome."
All right, all right, Moose.
My favorite best new character is Typhon DeLeon. Like
Typhon
DeLeon. Sorry, yeah, he's got a great. It was like the stories that he was telling in his logs, like as you're like running around Pandora and Borderlands 3, and then. You know,
when you step in shit, consider the upside.
Like, really? Okay. But, like, he was a turd farmer. Okay. I mean, come on. And so, like,
it's juvenile and stupid, but man, it makes me giggle.
So I thought he had a really good personality. It played out pretty well in the game. And then honorable mentions were Flack, because just Flack is just weird with some of his sayings, like especially that one-liner about the puzzles. And then the main character in My Friend Pedro is pretty cool, I think. Okay. Like he's pretty stylistic, flexible, nimble, like moving through the world and doing shooting in multiple different directions, which was pretty fun. So yeah. Those are my best new characters.
All right. So the next category is favorite style. And yes, I stole this from Giant Bomb, and and I stole it out of love. Basically, this is no real definition here. It's just like what's a game a game that you consider what's a game that you consider to be the best example of like a stylish presentation. My winner is Control. I think they do the Xbox, X-Files. Yeah, Moose is like, what? No, they do.
Did you buy one?
No, I did not. They do the X-Files cross Twin Peaks cross, sci-fi espionage thing really well. The training videos from Casper Darling are magnificently presented, as well as the music video that you get to later. Control's so well done. It's probably my second favorite example of world building this year. And then we'll probably get into what my favorite one is later on in this show. Moose, you're next.
Honorable mention, my friend Pedro. Just the game is just like kick-ass style, like you're running in one direction and shooting backwards off of the pan to hit an enemy up above you, ricocheting shots, just sliding around, rolling around, having a good time. I thought the gameplay was good and the style was good. Children of Morta, the 2D pixel art is just freaking gorgeous. The game, like there's some sections in the game where like you actually come up to a scene and it like shows you like maybe not an overview, but a large chunk of like the world you're going to be in. And it's just like every time I just stop there for like 20-30 seconds and just enjoy the view, like what they've actually built, and then move on. But my number one choice is The Tourist.
Okay.
Just like that. I just like that art style and what they've done with it. As simple as it is, it's just got a lot going for it. Like the lighting, the kind of almost like pixel, like 3D pixel style. What was it, voxel, I guess?
Yeah.
It's just really cool. And like not only that, but like the game, like there's no combat in the game, but you still have to fight stuff. So it's kind of like got a puzzle system to it, and then you got to like unlock stuff and like jump between the worlds and carry things from one world to another, like knowledge wise, and figure things out. And so I just think it's like a really good game style wise. So
I have to go with Rad. They fully embraced the 80s. Look, the groovy.
I love the 80s.
Like they really just went with all the colors and like just the narrator just being so over the top.
Mm-hmm.
That was definitely
loading.
Yeah, like it was so like pause menu loading.
Yeah, no, like Double Fine's sense of humor is really, really good, and they applied it very well to Rad. Next up is favorite moment.
I'll go first.
Okay.
So I actually there's 3. The first one, Matt got to experience. I showed my 4-year-old Untitled Goose Game, and so one day me and Matt were playing Remnant, and she came home, and all you hear is, "Dad, can we play Hong Kong?"
Yeah, yeah. That Facebook video of Arya is priceless. What does the goose do? Honk.
It was just so emphatic with the honk. Yeah. My next runner-up is the first time I saw the Horde in World War Z. I was playing with Jeff, and I think Moose was in the party, and I'm just like, holy shit. Like, you just see it in the distance, you're like, what the fuck?
Right.
But definitely, hands down the top was the first time we beat Remnant.
Yeah.
Like, we were just like, yes!
We did it!
Like, we've been banging our heads against the wall so many times. Like, me and you both were Googling, like tactics.
we're looking at this. We're doing everything they're doing. How come this thing isn't dying?
And then we finally got it. And we're like, yes.
We're like, oh.
But yeah, that was my favorite moment. Just beating a game where it had like, yes.
Mm-hmm.
Like this, because some games I beat this year and it was just like, all right, cool. But like, it wasn't like, this was one of those, like, we kept going, one more try. We're not ending like this.
Yeah.
And then we did it and it was like, yes.
Mm-hmm. White knuckle tension there. Moose?
Honorable mention, Typhon DeLeon reveal, Tiny Tina reunion. Okay. Loved that. That was awesome. Borderlands 3, getting to see her. And then the last Remnant final boss. So that was a really good moment. And I mainly just because it like brought us together as like co-op players in the game. And then we had I mean, like I said, we were making progress. We were moving along. And then finally when we were able to beat him, for me, I know you guys, that was during Mr. I've got 3 months off on paternity leave, so you guys were able to beat it before I could. But like when we finally got together and beat it in my world, it was very satisfying to beat that last boss and get that trophy for that. But yeah, I think that was the best moment for me for this year as far as gaming goes.
I will say the Typhon DeLeon reveal, I feel like the dialogue in-game matched what everyone playing, like as Lilith does it, everyone's like, what?
Yep.
Yeah. Like she says what we're all thinking. Like the player's like, wait, what?
Is this real life right now? Is this going on?
Yeah, that one was really good, and then everybody loves Tiny Tina, so that was good.
Sadly, the final boss in Remnant is my first honorable mention. My second honorable mention is the end of Control, the last 3 missions, because that shit that goes some places there. My number one is a tie between 2 boss fights in Sekiro. The first Guardian 8 fight, where you basically chop his head off, and then the body decides to get up, pick the head up in one hand and the sword in the other, and fight you again. That happens. And then
that escalated quickly.
Yeah, and then the other one is the final boss fight, where it shows up and it's a guy you fought several times and you beat him, and then all of a sudden the final boss basically he cuts his neck, and the final boss's hand reaches out of the neck, rips the body, and then says, okay, now it's time to fight.
So, like, the Guardian Ape, Jason, as you're fighting it the first time, has a fucking sword through its neck already. Yeah. So you're like, this is not going to end well. I'm fighting an enemy that already has a sword in its neck. This is not going anywhere.
But see, the thing is, it fucked with me as a From Software fan, as someone who's played their games since Demon Souls. Everything that I understand about a From Software boss fight happened, and then they say nah, because it's just like Shinobi execution, victory achieved. You're like, yes, did that, and then you look at the screen. Wait a minute, that body's what?
Yeah.
I don't have any heal. What? How? What? And then it's a completely different fight. It's different enough that it's just gonna mess with you in different ways. And the game is so good. Let's move on though before we spend too much time talking about that. Mm-hmm. Next up, I have favorite score.
Yes.
Okay.
I as someone who really likes music a lot, I'm just going to rank what I have. I'm not going to talk about it, but my favorite score of the year is definitely Outer Wilds. Then it's Sayonara Wild Hearts, Blasphemous, Plague Tale Innocence, Untitled Goose Game, Ape Out, River City Girls, and Cadence of Hyrule. Whichever one of you wants to go next, Ken. I just got mine out of the way quickly.
So best score, I would go Cadence of Hyrule. That's my first honorable mention.
Danny B.
Katana Zero. I thoroughly enjoyed the music in that. is number 2, and then my number 1 is Ape Out.
Ape Out's a really good
The
score.
kind of like jazz play music while you're playing. It's good, man. I enjoy
it really
it.
is.
So
It really is.
yeah. And if you haven't played that game, fucking play it. If you have a
Fucking
Switch,
play it.
just get it.
It's really
good.
fun. It's really fun. The visual presentation's great. Jason.
As someone who rarely plays with sound on for games, for one reason or another, this was tough, but I enjoyed the different level music in Remnant. Like from the jungle to the dead, like it matched the setting. Sparklight had great, like it matched the pixel art, like the type of like the old school retro music. But oddly enough, and probably because I had the collector's edition, Days Gone came with the soundtrack, so I had access to the whole soundtrack, and I really enjoy it.
Nice.
Okay. Cool. I listened to a little bit of it, but I don't really remember it. I didn't play the game either, so. Also, shout out to Disco Elysium. That game has a good-ass soundtrack from one of my favorite just Britpop bands for the past decade or decade plus, British Sea Power. I really hope that comes out on vinyl at some point because I will buy it. Next up, favorite story.
Go
ahead.
This was quite easy because, frankly, I played a lot of games with the stories weren't that great.
Right. Video game stories aren't great in general.
I mean, a lot of the games I play, I have a lot of issues with games. I mean, but right. I really enjoyed Outer Worlds.
Okay.
The way, I mean, the story was basically the same for everyone. The blueprint was there, but the way you went about it, I like, and talking to people about parts of the game, I thought it was really cool that they came to different, how they got there. Like there was almost always 2 different ways to approach, like, oh, you could shut off the power for these people and not these people. And then these people are pissed at you, so you have to do this. And I just thought it brought the story together because it showed just how much the developers put into it, that you could just go this way or go that, like and then watching, I think Moose watched it, someone beat the Outer Worlds in 12 minutes. And like even the developers were amazed that they put this stuff in there for the story, like stuff that had to be done, and someone just completely obliterated it. And I just thought it was cool how it was almost like not completely, but like a choose your own adventure. Like the end goal, the goal was still there at the end. There was like 3 possible endings, but like getting there was just so thought out that you could really, anyone playing had a different opportunity to, it wasn't the same old, like everyone who plays Sekiro, essentially it's the same thing each time. Like this was like, even you could play it twice, and Outer Worlds you're gonna have a different experience unless you did the same thing. But like,
right.
And I really appreciate that.
Cool. Moose?
So this one was interesting for me. Because like if I'm gonna sit here and think about story, there's really only one game that I really like paid attention of, completely to the story, and that was Children of Morta. Even though I haven't finished the game, the story so far is intricate and involves like the family and how their lives affect each other and are affected by other people that they're close to. So I thoroughly enjoy the story. I'm invested in each character, like what has happened to them and brings them back to Morta is intriguing, and it's like, kind of like building your team, and then you're like, let's go on and like take on the world and like finish this. So it's pretty cool. I enjoy it. I had Katana Zero as an honorable mention, and then I just threw Death Stranding in there because I played a little bit of it, and the little bit of it I played, I'm like, what the fuck is going on in this game? But so like you're just like, this story is crazy. So I don't like I feel like it's more maybe the storytelling is better in that than the story itself, if that makes sense.
Could be.
So I don't know. Like I want to finish that game to really rein in on it. But yeah, Children of Morta is my best story of the year.
Okay. I actually had a super difficult time with this until very recently. I really like the story in Sekiro, but it's a runner up. I originally was really fighting it out between Outer Wilds, Control, and Blasphemous, but then Outer Wilds and Blasphemous are more about world construction than an actual narrative. Control, as I would put that in as well, because a lot of that story comes from ancillary stuff rather than what you do in the game. But my favorite story this year is a game I played very recently in Platinum, A Plague Tale: Innocence. It is a solid story in the vein. I don't want to say in the vein of Last of Us, but I feel like they're kind of swinging for that sort of structure. I don't think it'll ever get to a point where it's as revered as The Last of Us is, but I think that a not quite AAA studio doing the visuals that they do, they bathe the narrative in complete and total dread, and the interactions between Amicia and her little brother Hugo, as well as the cast of characters you meet along the way, all contribute to a very, very satisfying arc. While I have some problems with combat in that game, as well as like the very final act, well, I don't want to say final like act as in final third, like I would say the final 2 missions are not great, but the epilogue wraps it up really nicely. All of the threads are tied up very well. This is a game that deserves more attention than it got this year, and it is definitely my favorite story. And I'm glad I finally got around to playing it. And then we will get to our final category of this part of the show: favorite independent video game, or favorite indie if you nasty. Well, let's start with Jason.
So this, of the 100 plus games I played, 100 plus were probably indies. This one was tough. I did have a couple honorable mentions that I need to mention. Blazing Chrome.
Okay.
Love me a Contra game, and this really nailed it. Even got the opportunity.
Better than the actually named Contra game that came out this year.
I'm only aware of the Contra Anniversary Collection. There was no
Rogue
other
Core.
No.
Rogue Core. Oh wait, you're just disregarding that one. Okay, I get it.
Yep. You got it. You're picking up what I'm throwing. All right. Cthulhu Saves Christmas from Z-Boyd Games, Cosmic Star Heroines creator. Fantastic game. Immortal Planet, you're playing now. It's like a Bastion, Dark Souls, Hyperlight Drifter mashup. So a lot of fun. Rad, I have to throw that in there. But my top 3 are Sparklight.
Okay.
Which I got to play at PAX, and it delivered this fall, winter. Untitled Goose Game. It's just a fun game. It's like one of the shortest games I played this year, but still, it's such a blast. It's just like, I mean, it's basically how to be a dick simulator.
Yeah. I almost put the Goose as like my favorite character, but I feel like everything around that has come out around the Goose has sort of made it better. But yeah, the Goose Game is so fucking good.
My favorite indie this year, Slay the Spire. It's one of those.
Nice.
You play it, like, once you learn, you just like, I need to go another round. I need to keep, like, you just keep going. And it's not like, it's not just one genre of games, and it's
Mm-hmm.
just so there's just so much depth to it, and it doesn't seem like it at first. Like describing the game to someone would be like, oh, it's a card game roguelike with combat but not, and
Yeah.
like it's one of those like no, you just try it.
Yeah.
Like I heard you talking about it, but I don't even recall you details you mentioned, and I was just the amount you talked about. I'm like, I'm just gonna check this out.
Yeah.
And then like it's like Slay the Spire is like one of those. I'm just gonna look up something on Wikipedia, and then 3 hours later, what the hell happened? Where am I? But that's what it. But that's what
day
it
is it?
That's what it really felt like. You just keep going because it's the gameplay's so quick.
Mm-hmm.
But you could play and then you're like, damn it! No, I was so close. Like I don't even know how close I was to even if I was even close to beating it. But I didn't care. Like I just kept going. I'm like, this is so much fun. Yeah. And it was perfect on the Switch. Like just pick it up.
Hell yes, it is.
Like as much as I want the trophies, playing on the Switch, just picking up, play bunch of floors, done, pick it up, like.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
so, yeah.
I would love to get the Binding of Isaac Platinum at some point, but man, it's so much fun playing on the Switch. Moose, how about you, sir?
So honorable mentions: Katana Zero, and number 3, great 2D side scroller, and that one's got really good style too. The artwork is great, and the colors are awesome. And then Children of Morta, number 2, and number 1. I have not mentioned this game at all on any of my lists, but Overwhelm. It is.
I don't even know what this game is.
It is. It's a crazy little 2D side scroller shooter where the enemies get stronger as you progress instead of you. And so like you have to get better at moving around the world and get better at taking down the enemies and stuff like that. It's it's like the color palette is pretty much red and black and white. So
all right.
It's I highly recommend anybody check it out. It could have been on my
platform is this on?
It's on Switch. I think, as far as I know, it is only on Switch right now. And it's I want to say $10, $5-10, but it's a lot of fun. Like when you beat your enemies that have like gained power as you're progressing through it, like it's pretty satisfying. It's got a satisfying game mechanic behind it, so I recommend it.
A side scroller for all you people that want a level 1 Dark Souls.
Yeah.
So my favorite indies of the year, I played a lot of them. Honorable mentions would go to Untitled Goose Game, Blasphemous, and Baba Is You. But my number 1 far and away is Outer Wilds. Mobius Games. They started this game as I think the challenge that was laid before them was to basically explain the Heisenberg uncertainty principle as a video game. And I'm like, all right, I'm down for some science stuff. And what they delivered is honestly it might be like this game will definitely show up in the next half of the show for me. But what they delivered is they delivered the best version of the thing that kept the original Legend of Zelda as my favorite game of all time. It wasn't that it was a good game or that it was was a good open world or whatever. But one of the things I really like to do in games is just explore and have that exploration mean something. And in Outer Wilds, when you explore for any amount of time, whether it is added to your info map at the end of your little 22-minute cycle, because it runs on a 22-minute cycle a la Majora's Mask. But I found myself knowing something at the end of each of those. And either I found myself knowing that I needed to go deeper, or I knew where I needed to go next, or I had learned another piece of the info map or the story, and everything in this game is presented in such an elegant and beautiful way, to the point where like this tiny little solar system does more for the player than the 19 quintillion planets of No Man's Sky. Like it doesn't start out that ambitious. It doesn't say like you have a universe ahead of you. It just says, hey, you know, we've got we have some people that are in the solar system. We're sending you up to sort of learn about it because we found this ancient race that, you know, we know about. Each of them has a different piece of information. They're all on different planets, and you can find them by the musical instruments they play. And that starts you on a journey that is just one of the best games I've ever played. And I cannot say enough about this game, and foreshadowing and spoiler alert, you're going to hear a lot more from me about it later on in the show. Outer Wilds by Mobius Games, published by Annapurna Interactive, who kill it every year, it seems like. This is a phenomenal game that you should play. I feel like I could recommend it to everybody, but I also want to say that you might not get the same thing that I do out of it, but I would say at least try. If you bounce off it. What can you do? But I think that will wrap up the first part of episode 0 of Story Route 0. And yeah, we will be back. You're going to hear a little bit of an explanation about something else we're involved in real quick. And then we'll be back with another talking person, as well as our 10 favorite games of 2019. So we will see you in a little bit. At Story Route 0, we have some cool friends who do some cool things, and I'd like to tell you about them. Phoenix Overdrive uses the power of games and gamers to help heal sick kids through the charity Extra Life. Phoenix Overdrive fundraises for Children's Miracle Network hospitals all year, every year, and the fund culminates in a 24-hour gaming marathon. Find out more about their events and projects online via Facebook at facebook.com/Phoenix Overdrive or on Twitter and Instagram at PHX_Overdrive. You can also join the Facebook group of Pawn Stars at facebook.com/groups/PO Nation in order to share and discuss all the latest in nerd culture. They've also got a podcast, Nerd Overdrive, which you can see weekly at youtube.com/Phoenix Overdrive. You can also catch it on Facebook Live or twitch.tv/PHX_Overdrive. That podcast is also published on Apple Podcasts, Google Play, and Stitcher. You want merch? They got merch. Merch can be ordered from tinyurl.com/PHXOD-merch, a portion of which goes to their fundraising efforts. Join the nation and be a hero to sick kids, as El Capitan Ray Osorio, Lee the Maestro, and Becky, the lovely queen of the guild, always say, #Rise Above. This has been an episode of Story Route 0. Thank you for coming along on this journey. We sincerely hope you enjoyed yourself as much as we enjoyed having you. Once again, you can find everything we do at StoryRoute0.com. Hit us up on Twitter at StoryRoute_0. or you can email us at storyroute0@gmail.com. If you'd like to hit us up individually anywhere, you can find Moose at Sven, that's SVHENN, everywhere on social media. That's PSN, that's Twitter, that's Instagram. You can also find him on Twitch, streaming games. You can find Jason Marshall at GimpyJ with 2 Y's at the end. That's Twitter, that's Instagram, that's Twitch, and he also has a website called whereisthepausebutton.com. Captain Canada is the only Story Route Zero exclusive. He's the only one you can only find right here on the show. As for me, I'm Infinite_Rewind everywhere I'd like to be. That's Twitter, that's Instagram, that's PSN, and Twitch. I also have my own website, infiniterewind.com, where I do all sorts of weird writing and rambling. Check us out at all the places. And remember, you are always welcome, and you will always have a seat waiting for you on this ride. But for now, it's back to the real world for us. We will see you on the next one.